Hello everybody and welcome to this latest video discussion as part of the Tech Partner Programme. My name is Andrew Knight and I've been working now at RICS for over 12 years. I sit within the knowledge and practice area of the organisation, and my role is to look at the effect of data and technology right across the built and natural environment. And with over 110,000 members working worldwide, right across the property life cycle, all the way through land, planning and development, construction, finance, valuation, brokerage, operations, asset management and end of life, it's clearly a very broad canvas upon which data and tech is having a profound effect. And indeed, our members also work across all the major asset types, whether that's land itself, residential, commercial, alternative assets, and indeed infrastructure. So once again, an incredibly important area where we get the opportunities and manage the risks of using data and technology. And today I'm really pleased to have Ádám join me from OrthoGraph. So welcome to the discussion, Ádám.
Hi, Andrew. Great to see you. How are
you? I'm very, very well. And it's always nice before we get into the technology, Ádám, just to get a bit of the kind of human side of things. So it'd be great to hear a bit of your backstory and indeed the kind of origin story of OrthoGraph.
Okay, let me start about myself first then. So basically, I'm an MSc electrical engineer. So I'm not a software guy, even though now I am building a software company. Actually, it's not my first software company in my life. And I deal with facilities management and facilities management related software development since 1998. So it's a long period of time. And as a software guy, I made the first ever BIM-based facility management application called RICS in 2000 or 1999, somewhere there. Under the umbrella of Graphisoft. So what I do actually is trying to have the building operation with technologies, let it be a workflow-oriented technology or let it be a data source. And probably the second is the more important topic for today. That's we set up originally.
Indeed. And how did you actually sort of see BIM at the beginning of your career and how it was going to be used?
Let me start with my first job, and then I will come to the point. So basically, okay. I work at Graphisoft, which is the cradle of BIM, or I would say that is the cradle of BIM. In that time, we called it virtual building, so it was a different name. The whole concept of BIM that time was about being able to have a logical representation of a digital building. So actually, it was a digital twin even that time. And we are speaking about 1998, so it's the last century. And that's where I started to work with BIM, and we made the first BIM-based facility management system. So the goal was to get out somehow the value of this building documentation, not just think about how does it look like, but how much is my rental area, cleaning area, painting area, cladding, baseboard, and lots of information in addition with the inventory of this data. And I would say that BIM is focusing on this kind of data. It's a huge amount of valuable data that we should somehow gather and be able to use it not only for the building construction, but also for the operation.
And I suppose it's an obvious thing because, you know, I'm very kind of mindful that people can get very excited about technology. But for me, it's always a means to an end rather than an end in itself. So where do you see the key problems and issues where BIM really is the solution for them?
Oh, then I've got also some bad and good experiences also from my past. So originally, when we started to deal with this BIM, it was a very impressive thing that you could get lots of information out of this model. The real problem that time was that capturing, collecting this kind of data was a huge amount of work on one hand. On the other hand, to keep it updated, it was even a bigger struggle. So when we speak about BIM and value generation, I would say that mainly people think about it that, oh, it's a big opportunity, but it's a big struggle as well to somehow to gather and to maintain it. That is why I made OrthoGraph, actually, what I'm representing today.
Yeah.
Where we democratize this whole concept of BIM, where we said that for operation, you will need this kind of data because you want to contract with your tenants based on real life data. You want to be able to maintain your equipment, knowing it, where is it behind the ceiling, for example. If we speak about a factory, then it's continuously changing, and to be able to know where are my maintenance points, where are my sensors, if there is some requirement for intervention, so I need to repair something in time to minimize or prevent downtimes. Then if you have a BIM concept, if you have a digital twin of a building, which is always updated, then this provides you a key value. It's a huge amount of savings. And that's what I say, that BIM, I think, is a huge amount of value for users if it's accessible and if it's a maintainable kind of BIM. And this is about OrthoGraph, actually. That's why it's the whole company.
So as you say, really, it's now focusing on that whole operational phase. That clearly there's a lot of value, as we all know, with that kind of construction phase. But your mission really with OrthoGraph, as you say, is to move to that operational BIM technology and all the value and all those challenges, I guess, around keeping things updated. So, I mean, who's the target group for this? It sounds like an obvious question, Adam, but obviously you've got to try and make sure that people understand the value of BIM in this operational mode. And with, commercial real estate as an example, you have the asset owners, you've got the occupiers, you've got the FM firms, who you actually sort of talking to it and explaining the benefits of this.
Yeah, thank you for this question, because probably this is the most important point, which also we learned from the market. Because originally we thought that the most beneficial will be BIM for the facility managers, because then they will be able to operate the buildings. But actually, the real value of BIM is typically for building owners or for the factory owners in these situations, because you want to collect all the data and you want to utilize this data, and this data is very good for the operation, for facilities management. But in addition to that, it's also very good for building automation. It's also very good for production plant designing or efficiency improvement. Also the same thing if you have a hospital, for example, then for patient care, to be able to follow where the beds are located, where are my gas outlets which have a related bed, space for a related bed. So it means that if I want to close on a story to support, for example, in COVID situation, enough hospital beds for the patients, then this all information becomes instantly a value, which sometimes can save lives, typically can save money. So interestingly, if we speak about BIM in terms of operation, and I would say that in case of building life cycle, we are focusing on starting from the construction, so for construction documentation, till the end of demolition. So in that phase there is something physical also existing in life. That's what I can speak about mainly. There BIM can always generate a huge amount of value. During construction, you get the inventory. During operation, you get the previously mentioned topics. And when we speak about even demolition, then you can plan about how much waste you will have and how to handle this waste. Is there something that you can reuse from your building? Because if there is something that you can reuse, then it will generate you value. It can save you money. You can sell it. You can keep it as it is. You were right with that BIM is mainly understood as of today as a support for designing, which is really a huge amount of value. But if we compare the designing and the operational phase, maybe I've got a slide about it just to visualize it in a way. So if we speak that if we say that the building construction costs 100%, then typically for the designing, we spend 10% of the total cost. And it means that you've got, we already have got great tools for this designing phase. We have got RICS, Revit, AutoCAD, lots of tools for designing. But if you think about that 30 to 50 years of building life cycle, which is typically in most cases 150 years, then in this period, there is as much as 5 to 10 times money spent on the building than its total construction cost was. And that's why we focus on the operation with OrthoGraph, because we say that there are several areas where operational BIM can support the operation of these buildings with rental contracts, with taxes, with energy optimization. ESG is a huge question today. And by using such services, you can achieve at least a 10 to 20% cost saving. And if you think about this red circle, that how big it was compared to the construction cost, we can save as much money during the total building life cycle, which is comparable to the total construction cost of the building. And that's why I say that we focus with BIM on the operation, because we think the highest value of BIM is in this phase of building.
Now, it's interesting you start off by actually mentioning a hospital, because one so often, I think, falls into a trap of thinking about offices as the dominant kind of commercial real estate particularly. But I guess it's interesting that we need to be thinking about factories, shopping malls, logistics, lots of different environments where operational BIM can be of a benefit, not just this classic view of the office where so much kind of mental input, I think, or mental energy is expended by thinking about offices. We have so many asset types to look at from an operational point of view, don't we?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And I am happy that you mentioned already several segments that can benefit from using BIM. So let's start with the hospitals, but that maybe if you agree, then I would also mention a little bit about the industrial operation as well. So if we speak about hospitals, because it's a good example, because it can cover many other areas as well. So in case of a hospital, typically hospitals are already standing there for many years, tens of years in many situations, which means that sometimes these hospitals need renovation, but the downtime, meaning that during renovation period, you cannot really use the hospital. So you have to minimize this renovation period on one hand. On the other hand, what we also met that in many cases, these hospital innovations are supported in some form by government, by EU funding, and in many ways. But there is only a very short time frame where you have to apply for these opportunities for this funding. So you will need to be able, you will need to be in control above your properties to be able to apply for these opportunities. So what we found, or what we saw in a hospital, in our largest hospital project that we had as of today, was that we needed to provide instant value, instant data for the user. So it started with a sanitary block renovation. So we had to say how much is the tiled flooring area of the rooms and how much of it needs renovation. So what's the condition of it? So it's a kind of condition survey where we started with that. We had to provide instant data during the first day. At the end of the first day, we already had to provide some data for, I think we had 870 meters, something like that, by one surveyor team. And then once you have this data, then this is already something which generates you value. In case of hospital renovations, we also had the problem that sometimes the departments do their own renovations because they cannot wait for the facility management department to do some major jobs. So it means that when you plan to renovate the whole hospital, then you already have some parts. So 10-20% of the building, which is already in good condition, but you don't really know about it. To be able to record it, to be able to know that there is a 20% of your building or 10% of your building that doesn't need renovation, it's already some value that we as an operational BIM technology can and has provided to our users. It means that we already had a full return on investment for the whole project. But in case of hospitals, we should not speak only about this kind of innovation part, because we should speak about how can benefit from BIM in other ways. For example, for patient care, if we can inventory all the hospital beds with RFID chips, for example, that's what we do. Then you can easily follow up where they are located in the building. Maybe you can connect also the patients to the beds, which means that you can use the automated pill supplying systems or other tools that will highly improve the value of services that the patients are getting from this service. Or if we speak about energy, it's also an experience that as these hospitals are there for many years, typically the lighting furniture is not the most modern. If you want to do a lighting furniture innovation just to reduce your energy consumption, then you should do an inventory of your lighting furniture, but not only in a way that, okay, what do I have and how can I replace the bulbs in these lighting elements, but you also need to understand what is the function of this given location, because it changes over time. So it means that using the floor plans, using the inventory of lighting elements, you clearly can calculate how much savings you can achieve. And we achieved a 51 to 65% cost savings, depending on the condition of the current building, on the electricity or the lighting electricity bills, which is a huge amount of savings just to be able to supply LED systems. So from hospitals, I can tell many more stories as well, but I think you feel already that it doesn't matter whether it's a new hospital, it's an old hospital, being able to get all the data out of the box instantly gives you a much wider way of opportunities in terms of decisions, in terms of operation, in terms of maintenance, in terms of cleaning. Maybe the cleaning is also one point which I would mention, and then I will finish with the hospital because I know we have other topics as well.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting that for example, we always offer to our clients that they should put an RFID tag above on the doors, which are closest to the corridor. And then you can ask the cleaning people to scan this RFID chip when they enter the location and scan it again when they leave the location. And after 5 days, after 10 days, you've got 10 samples of how much time does it typically need to clean that room, which means that whenever there is a deviation, so whenever you see that it was much shorter or much longer that they spent in this location, then this is probably a location where you should look for the quality of service what happened. And in case of a hospital, this again saves lives if you have the proper quality of cleaning. So that's about hospitals. Maybe I think it would be interesting to mention also the industrial part as well.
Yeah, very much so.
May I also speak about it?
Yeah, no, very much so, yeah.
Yeah, so in industrial operation, we also met something like the same crucial point. So in case of industrial operation, we thought that facility management will be the big savings for them and how great we will be that we can achieve a 10 to 20% cost savings. When we met the problem that for a typical downtime costs per hour the same amount of money, which is comparable to the total annual facility management budget for the given building, or I mean for the operational part, or some hours of it. So and these industrial facilities change every 2 weeks typically, or regularly. And to follow up these changes today, there is no technology that could be used. Which means that if there is a sensor showing that there is an overpressure or there is an over temperature, the intervention takes a lot of time to find where is this particular asset, how do I need to treat it. So in this case, by using OrthoGraph, we were focusing always on that this must be able to support the typical technicians to record all these changes. So if I move a machine from here to there as a technician, then I should be able to record it instantly, make a photo of the machine when it's taken apart, which means that if my sensor shows me that there is an over pressure, something like that, then I will clearly see where do I need to send my people to do the job. And as I've got these photos, I even can say them that guys, you should stop by the warehouse because you should have to have these tools and materials to do the job, which means that we have saved huge amounts of time on these downtimes, probably prevented these downtimes, which means that in industrial operation, it provides even more savings for the effective operational part in the production factory.
And I guess also I suppose that there's also thinking particularly about these kind of industrial manufacturing plants. I'm sure there's kind of a health and safety aspect here, because clearly one has components, one has processes in these buildings where clearly there is risk, and that risk can either be obviously effectively managed, but in more difficult situations, there may be the requirement to get the emergency services. So I guess there's some really kind of big issues here in terms of health and safety and managing risk with some of these industrial settings.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, and that's so interesting. Also from the experience, so we didn't think that we can save definitely lives, which is wow, it's too much to say, but that's what we got from the end user, and I can explain to you why, and then you will understand why we can save these lives. We had to make a survey, a P&ID survey of a factory with all the pipings, all the valves, and everything. Where they worked with ammunium. And ammunium is a very hazardous material, so it can kill you within 8 to 15 seconds. So it's really a strong material. And we have put QR codes on each of the valves and each of the main machinery items, because the basic goal of the system was to support the operational maintenance of these factories. And then the fire safety guys told us, so the catastrophe prevention office, I think this is the right name of it, I don't know, but this is how we call it here in Hungary. But so they told us that if we can share the project with them, if we can give them a 3D view of this whole building, when there is an issue, when there is a problem that needs to be solved, and then they can prepare themselves on the way. And when they are on site, then they can clearly see how they can approach the particular assets. Then we can save lots of time, which means that saving also or minimizing the risk of also approaching the particular valve that the fire safety guys, the firefighter has to close. And when and the QR codes which are on these valves can be scanned to ensure that they are closing the proper valve. And maybe I can show you a bit of this story just to get a glimpse about it, because it was interesting. So this is, for example, a brewery, which we captured in 3.5 weeks with a level of details that you can see all the assets with all their properties. And if I click on anything, and we are now seeing a web browser actually.
Yeah.
So here you can see all the asset details, QR codes, and everything. And if I'm curious about how do I need to approach, for example, this group of valves here, then I can simply click this panoramic photo when I'm on the way, and I can see that there will be valves. And I will need to close the third valve here. So here it's really hard to decide when you are under pressure, because it's a deadly environment that you have to take care not to close the second and fourth valve, but the third valve. And on the other hand, you will be able to see that this is how I can approach this location. So this is something which you can easily access by using a simple tablet or any kind of computer running a web browser. So this is where we learned that this way we really can save lives, because in this case the people can do the proper work and the fastest with the fastest approach on site.
No, that's very powerful. And as you say, it's as simple essentially as somebody scanning a QR code, which most people now I think are getting obviously very comfortable with. Now, I mean, back to perhaps the more traditional kind of asset classes, when you think about office buildings, banks, hotels, universities, shopping malls. What are you seeing in terms of the value there, particularly for this kind of approach, where perhaps it's not life or death, to use that phrase, Adam, but certainly there are still lots of benefits from that operational phase?
Yeah, it's a very critical topic. Today, ESG is probably the most important focus, or let's say that's what we think is the most important focus. And therefore, we also have features like you can go with the iPad, you can make photos of all the openings on the building. You can use a thermal camera connected to OrthoGraph. You can capture these thermal photos, attach them to the given particular opening. You can also add the note, a condition of the given opening that this needs a minor repair, the other one needs a major repair, maybe a replacement. And imagine that you've got 500 windows on the same facade. So we are speaking about huge amounts of data. That's a very basic point. So in this case, you can make a plan of doing the minimal renovation exactly on this, and that window, which will result instantly a huge amount of cost reduction or energy consumption reduction on the heating. The lighting furniture topic I already mentioned. So I would say that ESG, starting with this E part, is very well covered. Also including that you can inventory all the large consumers of your buildings, pumps, HVAC units that are maybe outdated, that are maybe not working properly now. So these are the huge consumers. When we speak about the S point of the edge, is the social part, it's also interesting. We've got a partner company who do valuations of buildings about people, how do they support the people living with disabilities.
Yeah.
And they exactly need to have a clear 3D access or clear 3D representation of the building to be able to calculate if a wheelchair man will be able to go through the corridor or not. So these are topics where we basically can start to support these works or this behavior. Then if we think about a little bit about the financial part, what we always meet that the building documentations are very inaccurate if they are even existent for these buildings, which means that 5 to 15% inaccuracy that we meet. And if you capture these buildings using, for example, OrthoGraph, then you will get a clear view about your rental area, about your cleaning area, about your renovation numbers, which means that you can review all your contracts. And if you see that there are some spaces in the building which are using much more value than I thought about it, and that is contracted, then you can review these contracts, which means that you can improve your quality of operation. On the other hand, what we also meet is, and is rarely measured, is that if you collect the room functions in the building, and obviously you know which wall is a partition wall, which one is a main wall, then you can start to think about building performance. How much is my usable area compared to the service area in my building? Am I able to move some partition walls in a way so that I can rent out more space for tenants, or so that I can lay down more patients, still having the corridor large enough to do its required functionality? And with these minor changes in the buildings, you are not just improving, not just increasing the usable area of the building, but also reusing that common area, which only gives you a cost. So it means that this performance improvement can bring you so much as a revenue, or let's say in this case, as a revenue increase, or in case of rental contracts, so 2%. I made a calculation once that 2% deviation in the rental area that you don't know about, and therefore you don't rent it out, will sum up during the total building life cycle to amount of money which is comparable to the total construction cost of the building. And we speak about only 2% of deviation. In reality, it's 5 to 15% that we meet. So it's all about money. And it's all about value generation. So it's not enough to capture this data that we capture. It's a very important point to start to analyze it. Indeed. And if you speak about sometimes BIM managers, because we hear the names that, I've got a BIM manager, don't think about architects. Think about financial guys. Think about guys who will be able to analyze and report and make different breakdowns of the same data, because they will be able to tell you, okay, this is how you could improve your performance. This is how you could reduce your cost. These are the points where you could improve the service level for the end user, thus also getting more revenue back from your tenants, for example, in a shopping mall. If you can say that, I see that there are less people visiting a part of the building with appearance sensor, so just measuring the people, and to run some simple graphical reports. So there are so many things that you can benefit from. You also mentioned banks, which is an interesting question, because many times we get the question that, okay, but our data is very sensitive. So how do you store it? And obviously we store it professionally on our own server, but we made everything available as an on-premise installation because we want to operate nuclear plants. We want to operate critical buildings like banks, for example, which means that the bank's floor plans is a crucial point of these buildings about safety. So in this case, if we make an on-premise installation, then it can run at the end user's own servers, or it can run in Amazon or Microsoft Azure and any clouds that is operated by the end user. In this case, we don't see what's in the floor plans. And we have clients of more than 100,000 of square meters, 132,000 square meters, I think is the last one that I checked out, who is running on their own server. And that's the only information that I know, that how big is the building portfolio that they are operating using OrthoGraph's models.
No, fascinating. I guess one final question for today, Adam. We could speak for hours on this, but I'm intrigued to know how you are kind of also working in the construction phase, because I think, as you said earlier, it's quite common that BIM very much focuses on the design and construction phase, but obviously for the operational value, you need that kind of inventory. You need to know all the components that have actually gone into the building. So how are you working, almost kind of going backwards in the cycle and making sure that you engage in that construction phase and making sure that BIM model, as it develops, is not only that design and construction tool, but that then turns into an operational BIM model?
So that is a critical point that I'm always fighting for, and luckily I'm convincing more and more people about it, that please don't try to reuse the existing plans, because they are not just the accuracy is the topic, if there is a 5 to 10%, or 5 to 15% accuracy. But when a designer and architect planned a building, then they said, okay, I need 2,000, this quality of air conditioner, this performance of air conditioner, and that's it. In reality, you will buy 932 from Samsung, the other, I don't know, 500 from Honeywell, and then from many manufacturers, different amounts. And because you don't want to slow down the construction phase, which means that you will have a mixture of all the assets in your building. So the inventory of your building is something that is really missing in reality. You will know that approximately this is the number of assets built into the building. Maybe I will show you in the meantime, just to see how an OrthoGraph mobile application, so it's running on my iPad, how detailed a model can be in this situation. So you have seen all the pipes, etc. But here, for example, we've got all the lighting furniture, HVAC units. In this room, for example, all the sprinklers are recorded. Or in this situation, we also recorded the furniture because they wanted to have the inventory of all these furniture. This is a software company which allowed us to let us share their model. They are located in Hungary, and they are really proud of this model. So during construction, you will be able to access all the assets which are later, which can be seen and which will be later probably covered by something. Maybe they will be behind the ceiling, fuse boxes, valves, lots of things that are important to capture. So it means that when you can do a graphical asset inventory, and with OrthoGraph, these models are really easy to create. You can see that this is now running. And if I want to make a modification, I just tap an item and you bring it to another room, and that's it. So in reality, this is how you maintain or how you follow up these changes in these buildings, which means that during construction, you continuously will be able to know or measure what's the progress of my construction, and if there is a difference between my plans and between the as-built model. And these are the two most important points, in my opinion, during construction, because you can use this data instantly for accounting with your suppliers, instantly to follow up. Okay, when will I be able to finish with the building? Where is the which one is the slowest supplier that is working on my building? So I need to somehow maintain them, accelerate them somehow. So this is, I think, the highest value generation during construction. And this we learned from a client, actually. So we didn't think that we are focusing so much on the construction, or we should focus on the construction, but from the client, we learned that it's really important for them too. And as a final result, so once you are done with this documentation, that it's instantly available for operation. So it's a simple one-step solution to start doing your operation. As the building owner, you will be in control. It doesn't matter who will run it. It doesn't matter whether the maintenance people provided by this construction company want to stay and remain by your company, or if they leave, because all the knowledge is in your hand.
Indeed. Well, it's been fascinating to start this conversation and look at the benefits of operational BIM and indeed how it then links into the construction phase. And I look forward to catching up again soon and carrying on with the conversation, Adam. But for today, thanks ever so much and look forward to speaking again soon.
Thank you much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed that. And I hope you find it also interesting because it's something very new what I showed you now.
Indeed.